The first time I saw Janet's true face was through the CCTV footage of my own office, her hand in Johnny's, walking barefoot down the emergency stairs like they were escaping a prison I'd built. And maybe they were. A prison of loyalty, favors, and blind faith, designed by me. That morning, I had just paid off the last installment of Janet's 9 lakh loan. She had wept in my arms, telling me I saved her from sinking. Without me, she'd have disappeared long ago. 12 hours later, she disappeared anyway. I'd left work early to surprise her. The apartment was spotless, unnaturally so. Our photo frames were gone. The drawer where she kept her jewelry held nothing but a scribbled thank you note and the receipt for the plane tickets. 2 tickets, first class. Clara said she saw them at the airport, Janet in a beige trench coat, sunglasses too big for her face, Johnny behind her, holding both of their passports. When I confronted the airline, the clerk casually told me the names matched the guest list for a private island resort, one I'd once shown Janet when she said she needed an escape. That's when I realized, this wasn't a sudden betrayal, it was a plan. I was in finance, Johnny was fun. Together, they made their exit. But what she didn't know, what neither of them had thought through, was that everything Johnny knew about the business came from me. And everything she stole was traceable. I didn't cry, I didn't chase. I simply picked up my phone, stared at our last text again, and whispered under my breath, "Janet, you just declared war." Johnny used to say he admired my mind, that I made the impossible look easy. What he didn't realize is, I never let him see the real system. He had a tour, I held the blueprint. By morning, I had frozen all 3 cards Janet used. By lunch, I'd rerouted all remaining business contracts Johnny was negotiating to Clara's name, our legal co-'s director. By evening, I had every major investor briefed that Johnny had violated protocol. And by midnight, Johnny's access cards didn't work. Nor did Janet's hotel room key when I had it deactivated from the master panel. Their tropical honeymoon, cancelled, their bank balance, overdrawn, their phones, flooded with questions. Where's Jose? What happened at the board meeting? Is it true Clara is taking over? Janet, were you really just a placeholder? You see, I never stopped building while they were plotting. I just never thought I'd use the blueprints on them. But now that I had, I wouldn't stop until they felt debt in a way money couldn't fix. And when Janet finally called me, voice shaky, calling from some cheap motel after the resort tossed them out, I didn't answer. I sent her one photo. It was from our anniversary. She was crying in the candlelight as I handed her the cleared loan notice. And below it, my message read, "You were never in debt, Janet, you were in debt. But debt isn't just numbers, it's breath, it's dignity, it's time you never get back." I had given her all 3. Janet always said she hated asking for help, but with me, she didn't need to. Her silences spoke louder than her tears. The night her landlord taped the eviction notice on her door, she didn't flinch, she just texted me a sad emoji and logged off. I paid the 3 months she owed, she didn't even say thank you, just showed up at my office with takeout and sat beside me like nothing had happened. I thought it was love. Turns out, it was just the start of an investment she never intended to repay. Clara had warned me once. "Jose, she doesn't look at you like someone in love, she looks at you like someone with a plan." I laughed it off then. Clara had always been protective, maybe too much. But now I understand. Clara didn't see jealousy, she saw patterns I missed. So when I saw Janet in Johnny's arms, smiling like she'd finally won, I didn't break. I opened my laptop and started calculating the price of her betrayal. I wasn't born with money, I was born with memory. That's what my father used to say before the liquor erased most of his. I still remember him crouched over the kitchen sink, whispering ideas he never wrote down. "You'll never have power until you stop reacting. Control the board, Jose, not the pieces." So I stopped reacting. I studied patterns, I studied silence, I studied people. That's how I built Elysian Tech, a company no one saw coming, not flashy, not loud, but essential. Government contracts, hospital licensing, and low-noise but high-margin systems for institutions to secure, to fail. By the time I was 30, I had 10 patents under my name, a high-rise overlooking downtown Karachi, and a million reasons to believe I'd made it. But I only needed one reason to forget everything. Her name was Janet. She was the kind of girl who didn't walk into a room, she slid through it, like a lyric. She wore oversized headphones, carried beat-up books in designer bags, and treated coffee like religion. I met her at a bank of all places, arguing with a teller about hidden overdraft fees. Her cheeks were flushed, her voice was too sharp for the setting, but her eyes burned with clarity, unfiltered, honest. I had just come to deposit a royalty check. She had come to beg for time. I didn't say anything to her then, but the next morning, I found her again at the cafe across the street from Elysian's headquarters. She was working part-time behind the counter. "Chai for Jose?" she asked, the first time she read my name. "Americano," I corrected, and she smiled. "That's what I said," she replied without blinking, and I laughed. We started talking every morning. She asked questions, real ones, about coding, about contracts, about how to keep your name on your work when others try to erase it. She listened with intensity, and every now and then, she'd write things in the margins of receipts. One day, she admitted she had dropped out of university a semester short of graduating. Her dad had walked out, her mother was a nurse with a heart condition, and her younger brother needed fees. "So, I did what I had to," she said simply. No complaints, no victimhood, just a fact. That night, I sent her brother's tuition directly to the school. She didn't thank me with words. She brought me a plastic container of chicken biryani that tasted better than any award night meal I'd had in years. I never forgot that. Clara, my childhood friend, noticed the shift in me before I did. She'd been with me from day one, COO of Elysian, clean cut, no nonsense. She liked spreadsheets more than people, and she loved watching empires rise from blueprints. "She's charming," Clara said once, when I asked for her opinion on Janet. "But people don't become perfect from pain, Jose. Sometimes they become very good at hiding what they are." I told Clara she was being cynical. Clara said she was being observant. Still, I didn't listen. Janet quit the cafe 2 months later and started working as my executive assistant. She said it felt wrong to accept help without working for it. I admired that. She typed faster than Johnny, organized my meetings better than any senior manager, and remembered my mother's birthday before I did. I thought it was fate. In truth, it was timing. Johnny, on the other hand, was my wild card. The intern I promoted too quickly. He had the smelt style of a soap actor and the attention span of a child in a museum, but he knew how to make people like him. And that counted for something. "Bro, you're basically Iron Man," he told me one evening after drinks, "but you've got no pepper. You need someone who gets it, who keeps you sane." I half smiled. And what if that someone stops caring? Then find someone who never pretended to. Janet cared, or at least she made me believe she did. She listened to my rants about bureaucracy. She waited up when I pulled all-nighters. When the press tried to tie me to a fake bribery scheme, she stood outside the building holding coffee in one hand and court transcripts in the other. "You fight your battles, I'll fight for your time," she told me. God help me, I believed her. 3 months later, I asked her to move in. 2 months after that, she told me about the loan sharks. She cried when she said she felt ashamed, that she never wanted me to know, that she had no way to pay them and didn't expect me to. I paid them anyway. It wasn't even the money. I'd dropped more on office chairs. But her gratitude, that was real. Or so I thought. Even Clara seemed to back off. "She's learning," she said. "Maybe she's not the mask you think." I allowed myself to hope. Johnny was the only one who raised an eyebrow. "You sure it's not too fast? You always move fast, boss, but love's different." I shrugged it off. Jealousy, maybe. After all, Janet didn't even like Johnny. She said he was too flirty, too flashy, always on. Funny how quickly that changed. Looking back, I should have seen the cracks. The times Janet asked oddly specific questions about our legacy server stack, the moments Johnny stayed a little longer in my office after meetings, the way Janet stopped cooking when Clara visited, the way her password started to mirror mine, but love is loud, suspicion is a whisper, and I drowned it out. Until that night. The night I transferred the final loan amount. The night I brought home wine, thinking we'd finally breathe. The niggy. I opened the door to silence. Her dresses. Gone. Her charger. Missing. Even her mug with the chipped rim? Vanished. And in its place, a small note. Don't wait up tonight, it's not you, it's me. But it was me, it was always me. The investor, the fool, the system she studied and outplayed, and the worst part was Johnny. Because Johnny wasn't just my assistant, he was my echo. I once told him, never break what protects you, even if you think it's weak, it's holding the roof up. And yet, he broke it. He broke me. They said they were in love, that it just happened, that it wasn't planned. But the receipt said otherwise. The vacation was booked 2 weeks in advance. The last withdrawal from our company card was made in a city Janet never mentioned before. They didn't elope, they were executed. And it became a memory again, like my father. But memory is dangerous, because unlike pain, it doesn't fade, it builds. And the man they left behind, he wasn't just the founder of Elysian, he was the blueprint. I didn't scream, I didn't call, I logged in. The first thing I did was trace Johnny's access credentials. He had used his badge after hours 2 nights in a row, once at 10:12 p.m. and once at 2:41 a.m. Both times, he entered the lower-level server vault, a floor he never had reason to visit, a floor I had personally locked from general staff. The footage showed what I feared, Janet beside him, typing rapidly, using my override code. I paused the screen right as she kissed him in the elevator, not for affection, timed, measured, a kiss that ended the moment the floor number blinked 3. They weren't in love, they were in sync. I leaned back in my chair, breathing through my teeth. Clara stood quietly by the door, holding her tablet like a shield. Jose, she said, before we go nuclear, are you absolutely sure? I turned the screen, watched her lips press into a hard line as she saw the footage. You always give too much rope, Clara whispered. They always think you're slow because you're quiet. They think kindness is a delay, I replied, not a setup. I moved quickly after that. I changed the master access codes, revoked every credential tied to Johnny. I called it and instructed them to scrub any internal logins not tied to Clara or myself. Then I locked my own apartment from the remote. When Janet returned the next night, dressed casually with her hair tied up like nothing had happened, the smart lock rejected her code 3 times. She banged on the door, called me, left voice messages, each one more panicked than the last. Jose, please, I can explain. I didn't plan this, I didn't mean for it to get this far. You don't know the pressure I was under. Johnny helped me. It wasn't a betrayal, I needed help and I thought, you'd understand. Understand? I was the one who paid for her mother's medication. I was the one who negotiated her brother's university debt down to half. And Johnny? Johnny was the one who couldn't code his way out of a calculator without my frameworks. I didn't delete her messages, I archived them. I wanted to hear every word, every plea, every ounce of fake remorse when I needed a reminder. By the next morning, the company's board had been notified. I leaked a copy of the CCTV footage anonymously through an internal HR channel. No words, just a video. It spread within minutes. Did you see this? Is that Janet? Is that Johnny? He's done. She's finished. They robbed the wrong man. At exactly 10 o'clock a.m., I walked into the executive conference room, Seoul. Ara was already there, waiting with printed reports. She slid me the preliminary breach outline. They accessed the core code library, Jose. He copied your database framework. She used your credentials. It's serious. I know. The board members walked in, slowly at first, then faster as the news hit their inboxes. Some greeted me with sympathy, others with silence. But I only said one sentence. I want them gone. Officially. Permanently. No negotiation. The motion passed in 6 minutes. Johnny was fired. Janet's name was blacklisted from our partner firms. Every company she could have pivoted to had already seen her betrayal. I hadn't just removed them. I had erased their future. But something still didn't sit right. That night, Clara stayed behind in the office, staring at the whiteboard. There's a problem, she muttered. The backup node Johnny tried to install, it doesn't link to any known client address. You think he sent the code outside? I asked. I think he made a private server, maybe for resale, or maybe to rebuild your work under his name. I stood in silence. And that's when it shifted. This wasn't just betrayal. This was theft. Not of money, not of trust, of creation. Johnny had stolen my code, the same code I'd once spent 3 nights writing in a hospital waiting room while my mother's heart rate monitor beeped beside me. He didn't just take my system. He took my hours, my exhaustion, my sacrifice. And Janet? She handed him the keys. Clara looked at me and said, "So what now?" "Now," I said coldly, "we end the honeymoon." The next day, I hired a private firm to track them. I didn't need their location, I needed their patterns, where they stayed, who they met, which domains they tried to register, which freelancers they emailed for help. Within 72 hours, we had a lead. Janet had signed into a WeTransfer account using her old laptop, one still tagged in our system. She uploaded a .zip file named Veritas v1.0, my core AI engine. I smiled for the first time in days. They had no idea I had embedded a signature line in every file I ever created. A hidden checksum buried in the 4th layer of compression, only visible to forensic compilers. Anyone who touched my code, anyone who used even one of my lines, would leave that signature open like a wound. It wasn't just about business anymore, it was about authorship, it was about integrity, it was about Jose Navarro. Because I wasn't going to sue them. I was going to build something better. Right in front of them, and make them watch. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal, it was waking up every day and having to unlearn the rhythm I'd built with her. I'd reach for 2 mugs instead of 1, pause at the closet where her coats used to hang, check my phone for messages that no longer came. Even silence had a pattern, one she used to fill without effort. Now, that space echoed. Some mornings I'd open the fridge and find her favorite yogurt still untouched, half forgotten in the corner. And I would just stare at it, like it had something to explain. Clara noticed. She didn't say anything, not directly, but her gestures changed. She stopped bringing up Janet's name. She started leaving quiet cups of coffee on my desk, started sending fewer meeting requests. I started walking slower when we left the office, as if waiting for me to speak. But I didn't. Because I couldn't. I was drowning, but not in rage. In a grief that had no grave. How do you mourn a person who's still alive, still smiling somewhere with the very man who stole your name, your code, your time? How do you move forward when your past is left with your future? Even my own reflection began to look foreign. I hadn't shaved in days, my eyes were darker. My shoulders sagged more. I'd sit on the couch at night and scroll through memories like they were evidence in a case I'd already lost. And the worst memory, the one that clawed through the others, was the night I first told Janet I loved her. It wasn't dramatic, we were just on the balcony, rain falling in the distance. She was laughing at something silly Johnny had said in the office that day. And I'd said it, quietly, like it had been sitting in my throat for years. "I love you." She had turned, stunned for a second, then hugged me so tightly, I could feel her heartbeat against mine. But now I wondered, was that heartbeat ever real? Had she planned her smile? Had she rehearsed that hug? Had she always known how this story would end? These questions weren't just painful, they were poison, they infected everything. At the office, I would catch myself glancing at Johnny's empty chair, not out of curiosity, out of disbelief. This was a man I had mentored, given a car advance, helped draft his mother's visa letter. He used to call me boss, like it meant brother. Now, even that word feels corrupted. Clara tried once, just once, to make me talk about it. We were sitting in the back of my office, post-midnight, takeaway boxes on the table between us. "I know you're thinking about her," she said quietly. "I know, because when I talk, you listen with your eyes, but not your ears." I didn't deny it. She leaned forward. "You don't have to pretend you're made of marble, Jose. You're allowed to bleed." "But what's the point of bleeding," I said finally, "if they don't even notice you're hurt?" Clara didn't answer. She just looked at me like she had 1,000 words she'd swallowed. Then she said one thing. "Don't let them take your kindness too." That sentence sat with me. For days. I began journaling again, not for healing, but for memory. I needed to remember who I was before Janet, before Johnny, before trust became currency and betrayal became my inheritance. Page after page, I poured my thoughts into lines. She didn't love me, she needed me. He didn't admire me, he envied me. I was never part of their plan, I was their stepping stone. Some nights I'd go for drives alone, down roads we used to take together. I'd park outside the cafe where we first spoke. I'd sit in silence as the staff changed and the chairs rearranged, but I remained a ghost in my own timeline. One night, I saw something that shattered me. A billboard, bright, luminous, playing a 15-second reel. There they were, Janet and Johnny, laughing together, promoting a new startup. One clearly funded with repackaged code, my architecture. Their tagline? Built for the future. I nearly punched the steering wheel, but I didn't. I just watched. Watching them sell my dreams as if they invented them. I watched her wear a dress I once gifted her, speaking to a crowd with the same confidence I had nurtured in her. And that's when I realized, I hadn't just been used, I had been weaponized. They didn't just want to leave, they wanted to rise on my ashes. The pain in that moment wasn't loud, it was clean, it was the cold clarity of knowing that forgiveness was no longer even a theoretical option. They had built an empire on my name. And now, I would have to tear it down. Clara knocked on my office door the next morning and found me already awake, sketching wireframes. No sleep again? She asked softly. I shook my head. No time. She raised an eyebrow. Rebuilding? I nodded. Not rebuilding, reclaiming. She walked in and placed a folder on my desk. This came in today, legal notice from their firm. They're trying to patent Veritas under their new name, claiming joint authorship. I opened the file slowly. Inside was Janet's signature. I stared at it for a long time, the loops of her letters, the tilt of her J, the way she still curved the S in Navarro even though it wasn't her name anymore. And something in me snapped, not in rage, in resolve. This wasn't about emotion anymore, this was about justice. They wanted war? Good. Because now I remembered everything. Every lesson my father whispered, every trick I taught Johnny, every secret Janet thought I never noticed. And in that moment, every ounce of grief hardened into purpose. They had no idea what I was about to do, but they would, soon. 2 days after Janet and Johnny's firm filed the patent claim, I received a call from an unknown number. I don't usually answer those, but something made me tap accept. The voice on the other end was older, raspy, and anxious. Is this Jose Navarro? Yes. My name is Faisal. I used to work with Janet. Years ago, before she met you. I sat up straighter. I'm calling because I saw the press, the new company, the software. She's done this before. My pulse ticked once, hard. Explain. She used to date a guy named Harris, ran a small IT firm out of Lahore. He designed a client tracking engine, real complex. She helped with front-end pitch decks, but nothing technical. And? She disappeared one weekend. Harris found his code being pitched by another company 3 weeks later, a company Janet just joined. My grip tightened on the phone. What happened to Harris? He shut down, it went dark, I moved abroad, I think, but he filed a quiet IP claim before he left. Do you have proof? There was a pause. I have emails, I was the admin back then, I kept copies, I just thought you should know. Send them to me, I'll pay you for your time. He refused payment. I saw your face in the press. You looked like Harris did. I couldn't stay quiet again. That night, I pored over the emails, the timestamps, the usernames, the logins, all pointed to the same pattern, Janet getting close, obtaining access, and then ghosting just before the launch. It wasn't a one-time betrayal, it was a cycle, and I was just one of several names she had extracted value from. What shocked me more wasn't Janet, it was Johnny. In the Harris emails, there was a side reference, a brief CC to JK at RelayNet, Johnny's email alias from 4 years ago. He had been part of it. Even then, and now the entire picture changed. They hadn't just fallen into something, they had rehearsed this long before I entered the story. This was their blueprint: target, disarm, extract, discard, and I had the final job, or maybe just the most lucrative. I called Clara into my office at once. She read everything, said nothing for 5 full minutes, then finally, we were never the first, but let's make sure we're the last. I moved quickly, filed an injunction to freeze the Veritas patent attempt. leaked the Harris case files anonymously to 3 rival CEOs who despised Johnny and Janet's media attention. One of them, a fintech mogul named Saeed, called me the next morning. "I owe you for exposing those 2, he said bluntly. "If there's a public scandal brewing, I want in. Do you want a press conference or a takedown site?" "Neither," I replied. "I want a demonstration." A week later, at a high-profile investor showcase, Clara took the stage. She wasn't the face Elysian usually showed the world, but she spoke clean and sharp. While Janet and Johnny tried to pitch a half-baked version of Veritas under a new name, Clara launched a live demo of our upgraded version, Nova Engine, with speed comparisons, real-time outputs, watermarked lineage tracing back to me. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't polite, it was devastating. Janet froze. Johnny tried to salvage the moment, claiming inspiration wasn't theft, but the reporters swarmed Clara, asking who authored the core system. She turned calmly and said, "Jose Navarro, the man they studied, the man they stole from, and the man who never needed their validation." The crowd turned, so did the tide, but the real twist came that night. I was sitting in my car, reading press reactions, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, again. This time, I answered without hesitation. "Jose?" Janet's voice, barely above a whisper. "I don't want to hear your lies." "This isn't a lie," she said. "It's a warning." She was crying, but there was panic layered beneath it. "Johnny isn't who you think he is," she said. I laughed bitterly. "I think he's a thief who sleeps with his boss's girlfriend and sells stolen code." She sucked in a breath. "No, he's more than that. He's violent, Jose." I still went. She continued. "He found out I contacted Faisal, that I knew he kept logs. Johnny didn't like it. He hit me." The silence between us thickened. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked slowly. "Because I think he's planning something worse, not just lawsuits, not just sabotage, something personal." "I don't trust you." "You shouldn't," she said, "but I'm not lying." She hung up. I sat in my car for a long time. Was it manipulation? Another trick? Or had she finally broken out of the script she used on every man before me? I called Clara, told her everything. She didn't flinch. "We'll triple your security," she said, "and mine, and our systems." But my mind wouldn't settle. Because there was something in Janet's voice that hadn't been there before. Fear, not for the lawsuit, for her life. I didn't sleep the night Janet called, not because I believed her, because part of me did, and that made it worse. I stared at the security footage from our server building, now monitored 24/7. I had firewalls thicker than bank vaults, triple authenticated accounts, even Clara had separate passwords for each floor. But if Johnny wanted to destroy something, he wouldn't need code. He'd go after people. I sent Clara home with a guard. She protested, of course she did, but one look at my face, and she knew I wasn't asking. I'd never seen scared, and even now, she wasn't, but I was. I wasn't afraid of losing my company. I was afraid of becoming someone who couldn't protect the people who stayed when others left. By 3:00 a.m., I got the alert. Unauthorized attempt to override building access. The signal came from an IP traced to a private network just outside the city. I didn't wait. I grabbed the car keys, slid on my jacket, and drove alone into the black. The GPS took me to an abandoned construction site, half flooded by rain and darkness. And there, parked beneath the rusted scaffolding, was Janet's car. The door was open. She was inside, slumped, dazed, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her wrist was bruised. I stepped into view, slow and cautious. "Janet," I called out. Her head snapped up, eyes wild. "Jose? What happened?" "Johnny," she said, voice breaking. "He knew I warned you. He took my laptop, said if I ever spoke to you again, he'd expose everything." "He already has," I said bitterly. "No, you don't get it," she whispered. "There are other files. He recorded things, conversations, even our nights. He said he'd release them and make it look like I seduced you to steal your code. He has fake voice edits, screenshots, he has everything." I stared at her, heartbeat pounding. "And why should I believe you now?" "Because," she said through her teeth, "I chose you, even now." I didn't answer. Behind me, gravel shifted. I turned just in time to see Johnny step out of the shadows. He wasn't smiling. "Man," he said, shaking his head, "always showing up to clean up everyone else's mess." "Step back," I warned. But Johnny didn't flinch. "You think you're the hero here, Jose? You think you're the victim? No, man, you're the system. You made all of us orbit you. Clara, me, Janet. We were just satellites burning up in your atmosphere. You betrayed me. You built something so perfect, he snarled. So flawless, no one else had a chance, so I created my own, and she helped me. He looked at Janet. She turned her face away. That's what hurts, doesn't it? He said. You don't care about the code, you care that she picked me. I stepped forward. No, I said quietly. I care that I saved you both, and you used the lifeboat to burn the ship. Johnny reached into his coat. For a split second, my body tensed, expecting metal, something cold, brutal. But it wasn't a weapon. It was a tablet. He opened a screen. I already uploaded the data, he said calmly. If I don't stop the timer in the next 10 minutes, it goes public. Every file, every image, every dirty lie I've engineered. Why? I demanded. Why destroy her too? She was supposed to stay loyal, he snapped. We had a deal. You never had loyalty, Janet spat. Only leverage. His hand trembled, and for the first time, I saw it. Johnny was afraid that without power, he was nothing, afraid that behind the charm, the smiles, the jokes, he was invisible. And maybe he always had been. I don't care about the files, I said finally. He looked at me. I don't care what you leak, I don't care what the world believes. You can drown us in noise, I'll still stand up. You're bluffing. I stepped closer. No, I'm betting on something. You never understood. He narrowed his eyes. What's that? Grace. In one motion, I took the tablet from him and hurled it into the mud. Sparks flew. Johnny lunged, pure instinct, but I was faster. One punch, direct, brutal, years of anger condensed into knuckles. He stumbled back, coughing, stunned. I looked at Janet. Do you have access to the server? She nodded. Kill the failsafe, I ordered, now. She got out of the car, knees shaking, and opened her phone. Password, confirmation, override. A green check appeared. Upload, cancelled. Clara arrived moments later, headlights slicing through the dark. She stepped out, taking in the scene, one look at Johnny, one look at me, then, without hesitation, she handed me a USB. What's that? His confession, she said. While he was monologuing at his new firm's launch, I had our analyst intercept the feed. Everything's been recorded, live metadata confirms it, chain of evidence intact. Johnny looked up, blood in his mouth. You'll never prove intent, he gasped. Clara smiled grimly. We don't need to, you spoke too well. We handed him over to the police that night. Janet didn't come with me, she disappeared into the ambulance, muttering that she needed space, silence, and a reset. I let her go. Because that night, under a cold sky, soaked to the bone, I realized something. Closure doesn't come with answers, it comes with clarity. I drove back in silence. Parked outside the cafe where it all began. I watched a new barista laugh with a customer, watched rain streak the windows. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the knot in my chest loosen. Johnny was gone. Janet. Maybe she'd find healing. Maybe she wouldn't. But me? I had Clara. I had my name. I had my blueprints back. And this time, no one would take them from me. 6 months later, Johnny's trial began. The courtroom was packed with journalists, rival CEOs, and ex-colleagues who had once worshipped his charisma. Now, they watched him from the gallery like a lesson they never wanted to learn. He wore a suit 2 sizes too big and smiled like a man still trying to control the narrative. But the evidence was stacked like concrete slabs, heavy, irrefutable. Clara took the stand first, then our cybersecurity director, then me. We presented the timeline, the code signatures, the forged transfers, the backdoor scripts disguised as test files, and finally, the tablet metadata from that night. The judge barely blinked as the verdict came in. 3 years federal imprisonment for intellectual property theft, corporate espionage, and digital blackmail. Johnny didn't flinch, but his eyes followed me the whole way out, as if searching for a reaction. He didn't get one. Janet didn't attend the trial. She'd vanished again, this time quietly, without drama. But weeks later, I received a letter. Handwritten, Jose. No excuses, only regret. He used me, but I let him, and I used you too. Even when I thought I loved you. If I could go back, I'd let myself drown before dragging you in. Thank you for saving me, even when I didn't deserve it. I hope one day someone stands beside you and knows how to stay. Janet. I read it once, then put it in the drawer beside the others. Not out of sentiment, out of principle. The past should be preserved, not revisited. Clara stepped into my office minutes later with a file labeled confidential. I slid the letter shut and nodded. Ready? I said. The file contained the final pieces of what we'd been building, an AI security engine called Argus, designed to detect insider sabotage in real time. Built from the pain Johnny caused, trained on patterns like his. The investors who once hesitated now tripled their offers. Elysian Tech became not just a market leader, but a warning. I didn't go to any more award ceremonies. I let Clara take the stage now. She deserved it. She had always stood when others wavered. And the day Forbes ran a front-page story titled, "The Founder Who Outsmarted a Thief," I didn't even save the copy. Because the article wasn't the victory. The silence was. No more apologies, no more explanations, just peace. Until one day, I got a call I never expected. It was from Harris, the man Janet had betrayed before me. "I saw what you did," he said. "You mean the company?" "No," he chuckled. "I mean the war. You fought it with class. I burned mine down." "You're still standing," I replied. "And so are you." We spoke for hours, exchanged notes, compared wounds like soldiers who'd survived the same sniper. Before we ended the call, he said something I'll never forget. "You didn't just beat them, you rewrote the ending they thought they owned. Maybe that's what revenge really is. Not fire, not fury, just a new ending. An ending they never got to control." Months passed. Elysian expanded into 3 more countries. Clara headed international partnerships. I taught design theory to undergrads on the weekends, quietly, without cameras. And every time I passed the cafe where Janet and I had first spoken, I stopped. Not to mourn, to remember. To remind myself how far I'd walked since then. One day, a young woman approached me at that same cafe, said she was a computer science major, said she'd read about Argus, said she wanted to learn. I bought her coffee, gave her a job. Because not every beginning has to end in betrayal. Some beginnings deserve better. And I'm finally in a place to offer it. Final scene, private event. Clara stood by the balcony, champagne in hand. She wore a deep blue dress that shimmered like stormwater. Her eyes met mine across the crowd. "You still thinking about them?" she asked. "No," I said truthfully. "I'm thinking about you." She raised a brow. "What about me?" "I should have looked sooner." She smiled. "I was always right here." I walked toward her, stopped only inches away. "I'm done writing code for ghosts," I whispered. "Good," she said. "Because the future doesn't haunt, it waits." We toasted, glasses clinking against a skyline that finally belonged to me again. And when she leaned in, pressing her lips softly to mine, I knew. This was my real beginning, not forged in heartbreak, but in clarity, in choice, in truth. The final revenge wasn't humiliation, it was evolution. And I had never stood taller,